schwa, the lazy vowel. Who is ready to learn about schwa? So schwa is the most common sound in English. And I would say, in addition to being the most common sound, it is the most commonly misunderstood sound. And what schwa is it's a distorted vowel sound in an unstressed syllable. So we are going to dig into this and try to understand it more. But what type of sound can you make louder and softer? A vowel, yeah. So vowels can be made louder and softer. And do you know how you make a vowel sound louder or softer? So let's do a little experiment. If you say the word help and start by whispering it, just feel what your mouth does and then get louder and louder till you're shouting it. Help, 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 help. Well, how do you get louder? You open your mouth larger. So when we say a sound louder, we open our mouths bigger. And when we say a song softer, we open our mouths very little. So schwa is a sound that is lazy. And vowels in English can also be lazy. And when you're lazy, do you want to move very much? No, you're just like, I just want to lay around. I don't want to move very much. And so vowels that are pronounced as lazy vowels are vowels where you do not open your mouth very far. They are also sounds that are therefore said more quietly than other sounds. Because your mouth isn't opened very far and it's being lazy, the sound is softer. It's also, when some of the vowels are being lazy, those sounds are distorted. But we can test the vowel sounds in English to decide if they're lazy or not. If you have to open your mouth very far or not. So let's just say the various sounds, and you can just feel, do you have to open your mouth very much? So say the sound, You hardly need to move, right? So this is a lazy sound. You hardly need to move to say, How about ah? You have to open your mouth to say ah, so it is not lazy. How about a? You have to open it to say a, so it is not lazy. How about aw? Again, not lazy, right? How about eh? Eh. Nope, it's also not lazy. Eh. You have to open it more to articulate. How about e? Not lazy. How about I? I. It is also lazy, yeah, I. You hardly need to open to say I. How about I? I. You need to open, so it's not lazy. And I filled in the rest of them. So there are two vowel sounds in English that are lazy sounds where you hardly need to open, and I. You can feel it. You could be like, I. Barely need to move. And any vowel may say one of the schwa sounds, or I. So we do not add this to our vowels because any vowel can say this. And if we did, then we'd have to add those sounds to every single vowel, and that would just create a lot of confusion. So that's not how we handle schwa, since a schwa is in an unstressed syllable. So why do vowels sometimes say this schwa sound, this lazy sound? They say it because English has rhythm. And what I mean by that is syllables in English have varying amounts of stress. So we stress some syllables, and when we stress them, we say them louder, and so we open our mouths larger. And when we unstress syllables, what do? We don't open our mouths very far. So if you look at this word, kingdom, which syllable are you saying really clearly? King. You can even feel this, kingdom. Can you feel your mouth open bigger for king? Kingdom. And the O is a schwa sound, and so it's not said very clearly because we're being lazy. We didn't open our mouths to say it really clearly. So the way that we handle this is we say it to spell kingdom. Let's say that. Say to spell kingdom. What we're doing is we're giving equal stress to the syllables and clearly articulating each of those vowels as we give equal stress. This also gives you kind of a sound picture of the word. Which syllable in the word adapt has stress? Adapt. Okay, dapt is stressed. Which one is not stressed? What will we say to spell? Adapt. Again, you're putting equal stress on those syllables, and so you will say to spell adapt. And why did it say A? It's at the end of the syllable. A, E, O usually say they're long sounds at the end of the syllable. How about frozen? Which syllable is stressed? Frozen. The first one. Which one is not said clearly? Zen. So we will say to spell frozen. Okay? How about? Which syllable is stressed? Bout. Which one is unstressed? So what will we say to spell? About. Does that make sense? Okay. How about offend? Which syllable is stressed? Fend. What will we say to spell? Offend. Seldom. Which syllable is stressed? Sell. What will we say to spell? Seldom. So we'll clearly articulate it. Here's another. Committed. Which syllable is stressed? Mit. Do you hear it? Mit. Committed. So what will we say to spell? Committed. Very, very clearly articulated, equally stressed. Accommodate. Which ones are said clearly? Com and date. You hear them clearly. And in longer words, there can be primary and secondary stresses. So these have some stress to them. Which ones are unstressed? Uck and ma. Yep. So the first and the third. That sounds weird, right? All right, so what will we say to spell? Accommodate. So any vowel may say one of the schwa sounds, or I, in an unstressed syllable. And you might wonder, why do we spell then with these other vowels? But what happens in the word human? Which syllable has a schwa? Man. Okay, can you think of a derivative of human where you hear the man clearly? Humanity. And what would happen if every time there was a schwa, you spelled it with a schwa sort of symbol? You would lose this relationship with meaning. And a lot of times when we add prefixes or suffixes, where that syllable stress is changes, and then you hear that vowel sound clearly. So this is the balance between phonology or phonetics and morphology. That's in our spelling. Here's this word president. You can hear the I is a schwa sound, president, right? We're saying the schwa sound. But what happens in preside? The stress shifts, and then you can hear that vowel sound clearly. So any vowel may say one of the schwa sounds, or I, in an unstressed syllable or an unstressed word. So in English, not only do syllables get varying amounts of stress, words do. So let's think about this. If you say the boy ran in the street, where does your mouth drop open further? The boy ran in the street. Boy ran street. Yeah, usually content words are stressed. And if I were to mumble the sentence, if I mumbled the boy ran street, you'd get a gist of the meaning of the sentence. So we tend to stress the important words in the sentence, and these little grammar words tend to be unstressed. And so we often put in schwas in these unimportant to the meaning grammatical words. I'm not saying they're not important to making a proper sentence, but they're not important to conveying meaning in the same way. So we have this word the. What will we say to spell? The. And you might go, well, that's kind of strange. But when you're reading a book, what do you say when you get to this page? The end. Why are you saying the end? Because you're stressing it, right? And we don't even think about it, right? That when it's unstressed, we say the, and when we're stressing it, we go the end. And so we already kind of do this without realizing that we articulate vowels clearly when we stress them. So this little word is a schwa sound, right? It says But what will we say to spell? A. So any vowel may say one of the schwa sounds, or I, in an unstressed syllable or an unstressed word. Now there's one more place that we often hear this sound And so this is what the rule is. O may also say in a stressed syllable next to a W, TH, MN, or V. So that sounds very big and complicated, but what I want you to take away from this is O is saying that sound in a stressed syllable. But there's a reason. So English was originally, in writing, transcribed by scribes. And in English spelling originally, these words were spelled like this: mother, wonder, brother, love. And what's interesting about these words is that they changed because there were so many straight up and down lines that people found them difficult to read when they were written by hand, when there was this U saying next to an W, TH, MN, or V, because those letters all have a lot of straight up and down lines in them. And so the scribes began to replace the spelling with an O. So we like to call this the lazy O. And a lot of kids think this is really fun to hear the history behind this. And then they recognize that they hear an next to a W, TH, MN, or V, and it's likely to be spelled with an O. Now, we wouldn't have to do this way, but when you're saying to spell, you're giving an auditory picture of that word. And so we give students also an auditory picture of these, and we will say to spell these words. So we will say to spell this as mother, and just exaggerate it. And with little kids, I often have a lot of fun. Mother, and you can develop this kind of attitude, with it that's fun. What will you say to spell here? I won. So the rule again is O may also say in a stressed syllable next to a W, TH, MN, or V. And we often refer to this again as the lazy O. There's one more concept that you need to know in regards to schwa. The R-controlled vowels also have a schwa sound. And they may say their schwa sound in an unstressed syllable. So what does that look like? In the word inventor, which syllable is stressed? Ven. And which is unstressed? The right? But we will say to spell inventor. Do you see it? Now, you might wonder, why didn't they just use the of her? But can you think of a word where you add a suffix and you hear that clearly? Inventory. Isn't that interesting? There's a reason that they chose particular spellings of or R-controlled vowels. And when that syllable shifts, then you often hear them clearly. Here's another one, major. Which syllable is stressed? May. And what will we say to spell? Major. Can you think of a word where that is stressed? Majority. Here's another one, popular. What syllable is stressed? Pop. So what will we say to spell? Popular. Do you hear it? Do you see it? So can you think of a word where this is stressed? Popularity. Yeah, isn't that interesting? Oh, I have no idea how many words there are like that. We've never counted them. There are a lot because English is a stressed and unstressed language. And okay, once again, we often have this myth that English is somehow unusual and so much more difficult than any other language. Well, I was very intrigued by schwa and say to spell of schwa. And so before I learned all this, I used to teach adult ELL learners. And I primarily focused on people from Eastern Europe, and in particular, speakers of Russian and Ukraine. And I got together with one of my former students many years later, and we went out for coffee. And I was like, I wish I had known this, because I would have known how to help you with these words with schwa. First of all, I don't think I defined schwa at all, let alone new house. So I sat down and I explained Schwa to her, and then I explained some of this and how we say to spell and how helpful that was. And she looked at me like this. We do that in Russian. Don't your teachers teach you that in English? And it was this huge aha moment that Russian is a stressed and unstressed language. Therefore, it also has schwad vowels because schwa is a linguistics concept that happens in any stressed language, and that other cultures also have to deal with. How do you teach the spelling of all these words? And apparently her teachers taught her how to say to spell everything and clearly articulate the vowels. So that was very fascinating to me. So do you have any questions? Or was there anything new, surprising, or helpful to you?
So then in January, it's stressed, and that's why it says air and not R.
Yep, it's not the phonogram R. So just because two letters are next to each other doesn't make them a phonogram. This isn't the phonogram sh. So January. Yep.